traditional summits, and it will be a chance to lay out an agenda for future relations. Cybersecurity is sure to be one of the topics on the agenda for the meeting between Presidents Xi and Obama. Joining me now to talk more about this issue is Jeffrey Carr, author of Inside Cyber Warfare, Mapping the Cyber Underworld. Mr. Carr, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Cybersecurity, as we've heard, a big issue, and we also heard our correspondent there saying that this is not going to be a time for finger-pointing. So what are the options for these two leaders to come to some kind of arrangement, some kind of agreement on how they move forward away from this?
Well, you know, the U.S. spends more on R&D than any other country in the world, but in second place is China. And as China begins to acquire and develop more and more research of its own research and development, it's going to want to find ways to protect that, which is really the core issue. The U.S. is concerned about protecting its intellectual property. China is, right now is being accused of stealing that intellectual property, or at least being one of the players that does this. And we have to find ways to collaborate. Unfortunately for China, many bad actors use Chinese IP space to do their acts, and the fault falls back on the Chinese government when in fact it's the work of independent hacker groups or other states that are taking advantage of the fact that you have so many compromised computers in China. So again, collaboration to me is the key here, and if we can improve and weed out some of these bad actors, not only from your internet space, but also from the U.S., because certainly China receives a lot of attacks from U.S. Computers that have been compromised by other actors using the U.S. as a platform. And if we can collaborate on identifying and stopping these independent actors, I think we can help clean up our mutual internet space and environment.
So, with the collaboration, what kind of framework do you see emerge from this?
Well, Chinese certs, for example, can certainly provide data, threat data to U.S. CERT, Chinese law enforcement to the FBI, and vice versa. There are many ways, and I know from my friends in the FBI, for example, I know are eager to speak with their counterparts in China and learn more about who the threats are that are operated in Chinese IP space. So I think it's going to be relatively easy to find ways to collaborate. And I think both countries can benefit as long as we can set aside the blame and the finger pointing and the threats.
Yeah, there already appears to be some finger pointing. I mean, we had a Chinese organization say, look, yes, we're being accused of doing these things, or at least taking up U.S. intellectual property, but we're also the victims of this.
Right. Right, and that's the reality today in the digital world. The landscape is very complex. It's very hard to identify who the bad actors are because it's so easy for someone in Russia, for example, to take advantage of a computer in China, compromise it, and then launch attacks from that computer. So if it hits a U.S. company and they see a Chinese IP address, that's where the investigation tends to stop. Then, of course, it must be